One other thing, it's a little bit about your career, but it also intertwines with Gina Morella, Gorilla Monsoon. Another little note in the book about how once you started working there, you had one of those manila envelopes that are passed around in your office, and
Yes.
everybody has to sign for it. So the last person who has it, you can see all the signatures, and you realize this is, of course, after Monsoon had passed away, that Gorilla's signature was on there, and you were holding an envelope that he had once had in his hand, probably put something in and had to sign his name to it. I bring that up only because as you say, in Brooklyn, I grew up in the Bronx, and I'm sure, grew up watching Channel 9, All Star Wrestling and Championship Wrestling before it became Challenge and whatever other name it was they changed it to. But, on Channel 9 at 10 a.m. and midnight. And remember Gorilla Monsoon well as the huge but extremely friendly and babyface announcer, whether he was working with Gene or Jesse, or later, of course, the pairing everybody knows with Bobby. But I imagine walking around Titan Tower and the duties you had with the magazine and other things, it had to be a really surreal feeling, not just to be holding that envelope in your hands, but to have occasional interactions with the guys you grew up watching or buying tickets to see.
Yeah, I had been a fan for years, and I make no apologies about that. In fact, I tried to downplay it because, as you guys know, they sometimes look down on that over there. They don't want a bunch of marks, working in the office. And so I'll never forget one of the interviews I went in. One of the reasons I did 3 interviews is one time I went in and I played it down so much. I felt like I played it down too much. Like they said to me, are you a wrestling fan? Do you follow the product? And I said something like, oh, a little bit. I have a little awareness. And I felt like I downplayed it so much that I made myself look bad. I actually called them up and I said, can I come in for a do-over? I really think that and they let me do it. And because I didn't want them to think I was going to be some idiot, kind of smart mark kind of thing. But I think one of the reasons they liked me was that I had both, because their problem was they either had people who were really big they understood the business and the product, but they didn't have any other skills that they needed. They were just fans. Or they had people that were really skilled and really good, but they knew nothing about wrestling. So when I came in, it's like they liked me because I could write. I had editing skills. I'd been in the publishing world. I wasn't just a fan, but I also knew chapter and verse about like their show and wrestling. And I knew about it. But yeah, I had all these kind of like surreal pinch me moments like you talk about. And I think that Gorilla Monsoon interoffice envelope thing, it sounds like such a simple thing, but it was one of those things. I picked it up and I looked, and at the very top of the grid, it just said Gorilla, just in print, Gorilla. And I thought, wow, this is wild. But I had a bucket list of people where I said, I want to interact with these people. If I'm going to be working in and around the wrestling business, this is the list of people. And because of me being me, a lot of them were old time guys. Like one of the people on my list was Freddie Blassie. I said, man, I need to meet Freddie Blassie. I got to come into contact with him. And he was very old by the time I got there. He wasn't in the office anymore. I got to run into him a few times, and he would always come backstage at the Garden still. But he was one of those people, Bret Hart, who I thought that was going to be hopeless because he was on the outs with the company, but I eventually got to meet him. Lou Thez, believe it or not, I got to do one of the last interviews with Lou Thez on the phone because it was the year that Lou brought Kurt Angle to the Cauliflower Alley Club, and I thought this is my perfect excuse to talk to Lou Thez. Like I couldn't care less about Kurt Angle being at the Cauliflower Alley. I want to ask Lou Thez about Farmer Burns and Strangler Lewis, and I got to talk to him for about an hour or two. So I had some of those. Well, Ric Flair was one of those, but he was around a lot in those days in the company. So I had all these people I wanted to interact with, and I got to meet everyone basically. But that's what made me sad about Gorilla. Like I mentioned in the book, I just missed him. So when I got there that day you mentioned in October 99, it was something like a week or two after his funeral. And as people know, he was still coming into the office right up until the time he was hospitalized. He was still doing voiceovers and things. So I came very close to getting to meet him, but that was a heartbreaker. I never got to meet him.
So the most basic kind of book related question, obviously, I think you've kind of sort of at least given some of the answer to it, but with all those bucket list kind of people you wanted to meet, learn from, or just have the opportunity to be around, when it came time to write a book? Why Gorilla Monsoon? Why Gino Morella?
Well, I mean, it's pretty simple, really. I just couldn't believe no one had ever done it. I mean, it was as simple as that. You talk about a guy who was one of their made men. He was tied into the company. Not only that, he was a big, big star. He was very well known to fans. I still don't understand why there's never been a documentary. There's never been a book. He never even got a special magazine the way some guys did. And when I talked to his family, even his family didn't understand why. I think they said the closest thing was years ago when they first started doing A&E biographies, not this current series, but years back, like they did one on Andre, they did one on Stone Cold. If you remember, like back about 25 years ago, they would do a few. There was going to be a Gorilla one, and WWE pulled the plug on it before that happened. So, I mean, that was something that was going to happen, but didn't happen. But I looked at it and I said, boy, this is a great opportunity, because here's the thing. When I write these books, I love to talk about old school wrestling. I love to go back and write about the territories and things like that. But I also am afraid I want people to actually buy the book. That's my problem. I don't want to write a book that I'm passionate about, and Les is laughing, but he knows, and then have like 400 people buy it. No offense to those 400 people. So I have to think, like, who's gonna cover both of those? And Gorilla was such a great choice, because I go, oh wow, so I get to write about the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and I don't have to worry that nobody's going to know who this person is.